right, welcome back. We're back now with the breaking news. Iran's attack against Israel, their retaliation. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who is a longtime member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Coons, always grateful to have you on the show here. We've learned a lot here just in the last few minutes. The initial American assessment of this attack that Israel launched against Iran has come through. Were you surprised at how successful this attack was, given previous understanding of what the capability would be?
Well, Kasie, it does certainly reshape our understanding and expectations about the strategy of Israel in its attack against Iran and the balance of power in the Middle East. One thing that is worth commenting on for a moment, if I could, is the role of drones that Israel had successfully infiltrated into Iran and pre-positioned that made it possible for them to take down some of Iran's air defenses. It reminds me of Ukraine's recent dramatic strike, great distances within Russia against their strategic bomber forces. I've been raising regularly with Pentagon officials over the last year my concern about protecting Americans in Syria and Iraq, in Qatar and in the UAE. There are tens of thousands of American troops currently serving throughout the Middle East, and I am concerned about and praying for their safety as this conflict between Israel and Iran escalates. I called on President Trump to do everything possible to position air defense resources in the region and was encouraged that he took steps a few days ago to move non-essential personnel out of the region because there's lots of Americans in harm's way, lots of civilians in harm's way as this conflict seems to continue towards escalation.
Senator, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, went out of his way in a statement last night to encourage the Iranians to avoid striking American personnel or interests in the region. What would you expect if, God forbid, American troops were injured or killed or significant U.S. interests were harmed, that the response might be?
I would expect us to strike Iran in response, and that's why I thought it was important that Secretary Rubio sent a clear and strong signal to Iran that the Trump administration, U.S. forces did not participate in this initial strike, and to caution them against striking American forces in retaliation. Frankly, we need to protect American forces, and we need to be mindful that there are hundreds of thousands of Americans who live in Israel. So as we are working to understand exactly what these latest Iranian strikes mean and exactly what the security situation is going forward, and as it unfolds in the days ahead, we need to be mindful that there are lots of Americans in this region and in harm's way today and in the days ahead.
Senator Coons, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that the Trump administration was aware of Israel's plans here. Are you confident that he is giving us the entire picture here? Did the United States have the complete picture of what Israel was going to do before it happened?
Well, I'm not in the classified briefings of the administration, but I certainly had no foreknowledge that Israel had made a decision to go ahead and strike Iran. There were plenty of notices and stories in the press that there seemed to be preparations in Israel to be ready, and that there seemed to be actions taken by U.S. armed forces, as I just mentioned, for example, to take non-essential personnel out of harm's way. So there were some signals, but there was supposed to be a next round of negotiations between the Trump administration and the Iranian regime in Oman this Sunday. So I don't think, from what I know now, that there was explicit approval or participation in this attack by the Trump administration. I do think that in the last few days, the statement by the board of the IAEA, the world's sort of nuclear watchdog, that Iran had taken significant steps to increase enrichment and was operating outside of the non-proliferation treaty, and the response by Iran to announce a new enrichment facility, that moved us into a more dangerous period. But I expected that the next thing that was going to happen this weekend would be negotiations in Oman, not an Israeli preemptive strike.
Sir, there of course has been discussion of the Israeli Prime Minister's tenuous political situation at home. He faced the possible dissolution of his own government. That, of course, has been put on hold, considering what we've seen unfolding here. Do you think that played any role in what we've seen unfold in the last 48 hours?
Look, it's hard to know the judgment of political leaders. If there's one thing that Prime Minister Netanyahu has been relentlessly focused on during his long career in elected service in Israel, it's the threat of Iran and his relentless attacks on concerns about denunciation of the Iranian nuclear program. I understand that because Iran has repeatedly threatened to destroy Israel and has supported proxies throughout the region that have carried out attacks on Americans, on civilians, on other countries. But you're right that the Prime Minister has other considerations, just like President Trump, who may want to distract from other developments. I'll remind you, we currently have a war of aggression by Russia against Ukraine. We have the ongoing conflict in Gaza. We have the risks in Taiwan. And we've got the bill, the reconciliation bill, the so-called big, beautiful bill that is trying to move through the Congress. Last week, all we were talking about was the breakup, the public breakup between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and how Musk was denouncing Trump's major legislative initiative after a show of force in Los Angeles by the National Guard and the Marines in response to protests that local law enforcement had under control. Now, all we're talking about is either the situation in Los Angeles and the rough mishandling of Senator Padilla, or now these attacks in the Middle East. So it's not unknown, either here in the United States or in the Middle East, for political figures to try and change the subject or to take bold or decisive action that may or may not be in their nation's best interest, merely to change the subject from politically inconvenient developments.
Senator, you just ran through a long list of things, many of which are incredibly politically divisive.
It's a busy week. Yes.
Here at home, right? I mean, the political climate in the United States has been at a boiling point now, and especially with what's been unfolding in LA, potentially at risk of tipping over entirely. Do you, and how would you talk about the Trump administration in this context, considering how angry so many Democrats are at President Trump? Are you confident that President Trump can lead America through this crisis, especially if it escalates?
Look, I have grave concerns about many of the leaders in the Trump administration and the president. Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, Secretary Hegseth, who leads the Department of Defense. I did not vote for either of them. And I just had a appropriations hearing with Secretary Hegseth. I have strong disagreements with some of his priorities and choices. And I think the way the security for Secretary Noem handled Senator Padilla trying to ask a question at a press conference was concerning, alarming. But we only have one president at a time. And I recognize that the world is an increasingly dangerous place. Even if at times I think our president takes actions that make it more unstable, that he divides us from our allies with tariff wars, and he fails to appreciate some of the strategic moments that we have in front of us globally. I do think it's important for us to reduce the temperature, to not encourage anything in the way of political violence or further division in our country. And those of us who've now spent hours watching with concern what's happening and unfolding in the Middle East, I'll end where I began, which is I am principally concerned for the safety of American service members and their families, of those Americans who live in Israel and throughout the region, and hope that all parties will begin to move towards de-escalation and finding a way to achieve a path towards a more secure region without an Iran nuclear program that could threaten Israel or any other countries in the region.
Very briefly, sir, before I let you go, do you think President Trump should proceed with a military parade tomorrow, considering these events?
I wish he would not. Let's be clear. The U.S. Army is celebrating its 250th anniversary tomorrow. My brother, my sister-in-law, my father, my uncles all served in the U.S. Army. I am proud of their service, and I am proud of the millions of Americans who have served and sacrificed in our U.S. Army. But I'll remind you, part of why the U.S. Army began in the first place was in resistance to a king. And our nation should humbly reflect on the service and sacrifice of our armed forces. And at this very expensive parade, in my view, those funds could have been better spent supporting our veterans, supporting service members, supporting Gold Star families. It is my hope that if the parade goes forward, that its principal focus will be those who have served and sacrificed in the U.S. military.
All right, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, sir, very much appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for being with us.